typically takes an average of 10 years to develop a vaccine, but the process has been fast-tracked for COVID-19. Estimates vary, but some in the medical community say the vaccine could be ready for distribution by next year. Yesterday, the federal government signed deals to make sure Canadians can acquire doses of 2 potential vaccines made by the drug companies Pfizer and Moderna. The news came a day after Canada's Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Theresa Tam, said we shouldn't expect any vaccine to be a silver bullet that can quickly put an end to this pandemic. The Minister of Public Services and Procurement, Anita Anand, had this to say about that.
We all want a silver bullet, but unfortunately that's not the case. And so the approach of the Government of Canada, and particularly us in contracting, has been to say, look, we need multiple contracts over multiple periods of time for PPE so that Canadians, frontline healthcare workers, essential services providers can stay protected. On top of that, we need to explore additional prospects. Indeed, the vaccination is one of those prospects. But again, it's unfortunate, but it's true. There is no silver bullet, and we must all work together to get through this crisis.
Federal Procurement Minister Anita Anand speaking to reporters in Toronto yesterday. So what should we expect when a vaccine is ready to go? Raywat Deonandan is an epidemiologist and associate professor with the University of Ottawa, and he's on the line with us this morning. Good morning, Raywat.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thanks. When Dr. Theresa Tam says the vaccine is not a silver bullet, what goes through your mind?
I can think of 9 reasons why she's right. Do you want to hear them all?
Can you do it in 1 minute or less?
Well, the big ones are no vaccine is going to be perfectly effective. So a small percentage of people will not be covered. Some people won't be able to tolerate it. It may not offer protection for more than a few months, so booster shots will be needed. We won't be testing this on children anytime soon. And then we have the issues around distribution and manufacturing, which of course are administrative problems. So I think a vaccine is definitely our way out of this eventually, but to expect it to immediately solve our problems in a few months is probably wishful thinking. More realistically, these administrative and slight scientific barriers will make this a slow affair lasting probably a couple of years, frankly, to get back to normal.
Okay, so when, in the early days, everybody was saying things are not going to get back to normal, not to the pre-COVID days until a vaccine is found. But even when a vaccine is developed, there's still going to be probably physical distancing protocols in place. What else do you think that we are going to keep up with?
We're going to keep on having the small group sizes enforced. I don't see big concerts happening for another couple of years, or big sporting events. I don't see large gatherings of like weddings indoors, that sort of thing. Masks will probably be a part of our lives for some time. They're becoming normalized pretty fast, and they're pretty effective at diminishing even the seasonal flu. So we may be becoming more Asian, where masks are part of our culture, even in non-pandemic times. And I hope that this will change people's attitudes around vaccines in general. Maybe we'll have a record uptake of the flu vaccine this year. So I think the society as a whole is bending towards public health as a value more so than it has in the past.
I want to pick up on something that you said there in your 9 points in 1 minute, that we won't be testing it on children anytime soon. So at what point do children get a vaccine?
It's a good question. I don't think many people are comfortable with exposing our children to things that don't have years of safety trials. So the way the clinical trials work is, the first couple ones establish whether or not there is an immune response. The third one, the phase 3 trial, the big one, that's when we release it into the world in a strategic basis to figure out how it interacts with real people and if it actually prevents infection. Now, after that, the post-market trials, when it goes wild and millions of people are taking it, that's when we'll see if, in fact, different kinds of people with a true diversity can experience bad effects or good effects. And then maybe we can start trying it on children. So I think in the short term, and by short term I mean maybe 1-2 years, we'll be vaccinating teachers and caregivers more so than children. Children's immune systems are different from adults' immune systems. So they require a different set of research priorities and strategies to establish their safety.
How concerned are you about the supply of the vaccine once it is ready, even with the deals that the government just made?
See, that's not a scientific problem. That's an administrative problem. And I'm more happy about administrative problems than I am about technical problems, because they can be solved with money. You just hire more manufacturers, more factories, and turn them over to make the stuff. There's actually a global glass shortage. People don't realize that. And so getting enough vials to ship several billion copies of an antiviral agent might be problematic. So this is the chance for the managers and the infrastructural people and logistics people to step up and show us their deep skills. Because again, doesn't require Nobel Prize winning science to distribute. That stuff has been done already. The hard stuff has been done, sort of. Now it requires the grunt work to get it made and shipped.
I was reading a piece recently saying that the vaccine skeptics, the ones who are hesitant about vaccines in the first place, they could undo all the progress. Are you worried about that?
A little bit. But some studies suggest that 80% of Canadians are eager to try a COVID vaccine. So I'm confident there. Also, the people who are hesitant now aren't the traditionally hesitant people. They aren't the science deniers. They're people with actually rational concerns about a new biomedical product being foisted upon people. So I don't diminish the concerns of people who are hesitant about this particular vaccine. I personally will accept this vaccine when it's available, because I trust the science and I've seen the process. But it represents a whole new challenge for public health communicators. We've been struggling with anti-vaccination narratives for some time now. Now it takes on a whole new gear, right? So are we up to the challenge as public health people? I'm kind of excited to try it out.
Is that a common thought in your community amongst kind of doctors and nurses in the medical community you talk to? I mean, we certainly have heard from some doctors that even they are feeling a little bit nervous about taking the vaccine when it first comes out. Are you hearing any of that?
Yeah, it's about half and half. I mean, I'm nervous as well, because it's a brand new thing you're sticking into your arm. However, knowing how it's created and knowing that the reason we got to this stage so fast is that these vaccines are being developed on existing validated platforms. So it's not entirely new technology. So a lot of the safety stuff has been worked out in prior iterations. So I'm not overly concerned about that. I'd be concerned about giving it to my child, because it hasn't been thoroughly tested yet. But for me personally, to be able to protect my loved ones in my community, I think it's a proper thing to do. And the potential side effects, I don't see as being deeply problematic. Right now, all the trials suggest that most of the vaccine candidates produce pain on site, maybe some fevers. That's for healthy volunteers. So maybe as it is trialed and more problematic people with underlying conditions will see more serious effects. But I get it, and in fact, many of my physician spouse wouldn't get it. She's a little more conservative than I am when it comes to protecting her body. But I would. So it's about half and half.
What conversations do you have with your spouse about that?
Oh, that's a long conversation.
That's one for inside the house.
We have different risk perception thresholds.
Interesting. Well, I would love to be a fly on the wall for that one. We don't know, but the vaccine likely will not be mandatory. How many people would need to take it for it to be effective?
So that's a good question too. About 50 to 70% probably. So we're aiming for artificial herd immunity here, and we compute herd immunity as a function of that thing called the reproduction number. But that reproduction number also varies with the public health measures we put into place. So the vaccine doesn't have to take the problem away. It does if we get 80% uptake. But if enough people take it and we continue with the hand washing and the distancing, then the vaccine becomes one tool in the public health toolbox that allows us to control this in such a way that the economy stays open.
Kind of going back to where we started in this conversation, how focused do you think that we should be on the vaccine versus all of the other measures to curb the spread of the virus?
That's a really good point. As a society, we should be focused on the latter, on the things we can do right now that are real, that are in our hands. The vaccine is still theoretical. I'm excited by the vaccine. I think it's coming, and I think it will change our lives for the better. But we can't bank on it in the short term. We have to open schools in the fall, and the vaccine won't be here in the fall. So what do we do the next few months to keep our kids and our community safe? Right? We have to focus on those tried and true 19th century technologies of distancing and hand washing and mask wearing.
This is more a personal question than an epidemiologist question, but we know that you're a new dad, that your partner recently had a baby boy. I mean, when you're talking about the things that are going to change in life, the no big gatherings, possibly, concerts on hold. Do you worry that things are going to change really significantly for your son?
I do, but it won't be lasting. Right, so my son luckily is 3 months old, and so won't be noticing this stuff. So by the time he's going to concerts, this will be under control. But if he were older, I'd be concerned about his socialization in the next couple of years. I want him to see the world, to go to museums, to see different people, and to interact with different faces. But I have faith that within a year, if not 2, then we'll have that opportunity. But probably before then.
Okay, Raywat, good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's Raywat Deonandan. He's an epidemiologist and associate professor with the University of Ottawa. Thoughts on what he had to say? You can send us an email, ottawamorning@cbc.ca, or always Twitter is open. Ottawa Morning is where we are.